Good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope you didn't cry too many tears, but we are back on the EPL panel show with the best non-Liverpool fans in the land. And I mean that most sincerely. It's always a good time to host the EPL panel show. It's always a great conversation with great people and the Man United fan. We're joined by Jamie and Glenn so far. The Man United fan will show up a bit later. Jamie, how are we doing, first of all?
We are surprisingly optimistic. A bit of personal news. I got engaged on Sunday.
Congratulations! It's all downhill from here.
So I was obviously had that planned Club World Cup final beforehand. So I am really not gonna. I'm gonna have to put on a smile and a brave face if we lose 6-0, and then 2 hours later I'm down on one knee, just like Chelsea would have been to lose 6-0. But yeah, very good.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Glenn, how are you in the post-Frank era?
Yeah, there's lots to talk about, to be honest, Macca. I'll
probably
leave it there, to be honest.
We will get to that later, but here's what we will talk about tonight. We'll talk about, all joking aside, but more in terms of Infantino's this is the best club competition in the world statement, which I don't believe it is. And it probably might need to go a long way before it competes with the Champions League for that moniker. But nonetheless, probably a very well-viewed tournament in its format and that we had this year. Transfers, what your club is doing and what you feel about it so far and what you want to see before the start of the season. And then what the preseason is going to look like for you. We've already had a weekend or two of preseason games, and they're not worth the course in terms of results, but they are always a nice indicator of how your team's going to line up coming into the future. And then City's deal to get even more money. They got jealous of Chelsea and decided they wanted some of those billions as well, but in a way that isn't going to see them in court 115 times in the future. So let us start with the Club World Cup, and we obviously have to go to Jamie for this for obvious reasons. But now, as we discussed before we went on air, I didn't see a single game, and just scheduling and work, etc. So I've no idea what the impression is. I'm not impressed by the fact that they had like Coldplay and all that in the halftime show. I think that's a bit too Americanized for me. I'm even less impressed by the fact that the president of the United States of America apparently stole the trophy, leaving Chelsea with a replica. But overall, I mean, it was a nice, especially for Chelsea, in terms of finances, it was a nice prize to get monetarily. But how do you feel about it in terms of the actual trophy itself? I mean, Maresca, he did an impressive job there.
Yeah, we started slow-ish. I think we lost one of our group games, and as with most of the group games, I think that was where you saw a lot of the empty stadiums and whatnot, and it seemed as though the US really was not buying in. I think part of that was the fact that the games were at 3:00 in the middle of the day, on like Tuesday. They need to do something about that for the World Cup. But once, as with like even the Europa Conference League, once it gets to knockout stages, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, if you are in it, you may as well try and win it, which that was the case with Chelsea. I think we got very lucky not really the side of the draw that we were on. We more got lucky that the teams that would have been on our side of the draw lost to Al Hilal and Fluminense. So, and yeah, I mean, we were phenomenal in the final. Honestly, I think I'm more upbeat about the performance we put in against PSG than I am about winning the tournament. I think winning it's great. Like it's not a preseason tournament. It's going to be something bigger. It isn't yet. They need to figure that out. It's probably going to be a number of years until it is. But the money that they're throwing at it, like it's probably going to be a success sooner rather than later. And quite a weird double, Europa Conference League and Club World Cup. But honestly, Cole Palmer, but everyone on the field, substitutes included, were wonderful. And Maresca was fantastic, probably his best managerial game, completely outclassed Luis Enrique, and we were well worth our 3-0 lead at halftime. Could have been more, and that was a shock to the system, let me tell you.
I mean, it was a shock that, by all accounts, PSG were completely and utterly nullified. Like nothing that worked for them that made them such an exciting team in the Champions League seemed to come off for them by all accounts. I've never come across Maresca as being maybe like a tactician in the same way that we talk about Unai Emery, you know, like a game for every team. But he's definitely not the big Ange Postecoglou, here's the one way of playing all the time. He definitely does think about the game, doesn't he?
He certainly thinks about it. And it seemed as though PSG kind of thought they won the game by walking on the pitch based on the results they had against Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Inter Milan in the past. The media is telling them that they were 2011 Barca, and they were absolutely believing that, drinking the Kool-Aid. And an underdog Chelsea team is a really dangerous team to come up against in cup finals. We're rarely favourites. Bayern Munich in 2012, City in 2021, and pretty different, but PSG here. And it's easy to say, oh, we wanted it more, but you could tell within the first 10 minutes we were pressing. João Pedro was everywhere. Caicedo had every single player in his pocket, as did Cucurella, Malo Gusto, like anyone who, I forgot Dembele was playing for the first 30 minutes, and he was arguably the best, like supposed to be the best player on the pitch. And I mean, cup competitions have tended to be our specialty. Like it's not a 38 game season. You only have to show up for a couple of games. We're good at that. We get very hot in spells, and we got hot at the right time.
And then before I go to Glenn, you know, PSG looked like they were going to be the next phase of football kind of tactics. Very fluid, like movement from everywhere. I don't want to say positionless, but no concept of staying in position in the Champions League. And it caught a lot of teams out, but it didn't catch Maresca out, and that must be almost as encouraging as anything else. That, you know, he can see not just the game plan from Luis Enrique, but also the talent that PSG has and have a game plan for it. The trick, do you think, going forward is it's all well and good doing it against PSG, but you also have to have a game plan for Fulham as well.
Exactly, yeah. And Fulham are going to be well up for it against Chelsea, London derby. PSG maybe not so much, but yeah, I think Maresca has been not quite Ange Postecoglou, but in trying to instill his system last season, he was pretty rigid. We'd always have one, maybe even two fullbacks inverting, and he took the leash off. Cucurella stayed at the back, and then Gusto was charging, overlapping on the right-hand side, really giving Nuno Mendes, who's often touted as the best left back or one of the best left backs in the world, giving him an absolutely torrid time. And then Cole Palmer did Cole Palmer things. So he found a way to line the team up while also giving Cole Palmer the space he needs to dictate play. And he did it masterfully. So if he can do half of that next season, we should be in for a better season than this one. And we've got a few signings to integrate as well, which I'm sure we'll come to.
Glenn, as a neutral observer like myself, what was your impression of the expanded Club World Cup? It's not going. I don't think it's going to compete with the Champions League, given that the Champions League is week to week, so there's more, cachet there. But on the other hand, it seems like Infantino's trying to make it literally the World Club Cup for clubs with the same sort of hullabaloo. Like even if Ireland don't qualify for World Cup, which is obviously the case these days, I'll still watch every World Cup that I can and every World Cup game that I can. I still get excited about the day before the World Cup the same way I get excited about the day before the FA Cup final, even though I might not have Liverpool might not be playing in it. It's just the occasion is such a big thing. Do you think, as a neutral observer, do you think that's what Infantino's going for? What were your impressions of this one? And do you think he will succeed in making it as competitive in terms of getting eyeballs on the television screen as the Champions League?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it, Mac? There's lots to unpack. I mean, same as you, I was neutral to the point of completely tuned out, to be honest. I think I watched about 20 minutes of a Chelsea early stage of the tournament game, and I just couldn't really face anymore. I think, ethically it was hugely challenging with the players' welfare. It felt really shoehorned onto the end of what's already been a really busy season, right, for a lot of the players. And that was only magnified by these scorching temperatures in the US, which really were a pretty heavy prediction for how conditions are going to be in the World Cup, the actual World Cup, obviously next summer, not very long at all away. Not long till that unfolds. Yeah, I just couldn't really get engaged with it. I didn't have any narratives that I found particularly interesting. Obviously, you had a couple of semi-pro-ish teams at the start of the tournament that, interesting stories that they're in there, and the financial implications for the leagues they play in, right? This giant windfall of money and how that's being divided between the leagues, the teams. Like, some of that objectively was like semi-interesting, but in terms of what unfolded, yeah, I was pretty removed from it. I mean, Dara put in the chat, and left Spurs to prepare for the Ashes. And to be perfectly honest, Macca, I have been watching cricket the last month or 2 months. I've been enjoying a fantastic series between England and India. So honestly, I was pretty removed from this. For me, it felt like a shame that, I just really wanted a World Cup or a Euros. Obviously, we've got the Women's Euros, which has been great, obviously, in Europe. But beyond that, I just didn't feel any connection to it. It did feel like this big money grab. It did feel like it was really being forced down our throats. And I think you saw a pretty big division, right, in kind of general fan base, just general football fans, who were like either completely dug in and didn't want to engage with it at all, which I guess by sheer laziness, I guess I ended up in that camp. You got the football fans who followed a team like Jamie, your City fans, Chelsea fans. Fair enough. I would engage with it if Brentford were in it. Don't get me wrong. And then you've got the kind of group of fans who gave it a go. And obviously some people enjoyed it. I mean, the knockout games, knockout football, right, Jamie, is, you talked about Chelsea doing well. Knockout football is entertaining. That's the whole point of it. So there were some interesting games. It was really interesting to see PSG brush aside a couple of teams like Real Madrid until they came up against a revitalized Chelsea. But for me, Macca, it just felt greedy. It felt unnecessary. I just didn't feel like I needed to give it any support because, I just had absolutely no connection to it. I do think they're going to come back to it. I think you're right. I think it's something that is this kind of pet project, right, of Infantino. And I mean, I just think it was hilarious. I mean, the biggest highlight I got from it was Trump stealing a medal, apparently stealing the trophy as well. That's going to be in the White House. And best of all, the highlight of the entire tournament, unless you were literally a Chelsea fan, was him refusing to move out the way for the team photo. And Chelsea, I think, actually airbrushed him out of one of the photos. And Cole Palmer and Reece James just not fathoming why he won't get out the way was exceptional. And there's certainly something to be said between, these regimes, whether it's Qatar or the US, that are doing a lot of incredibly questionable things, and how sports is a vehicle to wash those things away, right? You could say the same about the US as you can say for Qatar with human rights. So I think for me, it was bloated, it was unnecessary, and politically, I'm glad it ended in farce at the end, because for me, there was certainly an element of satire that felt almost tongue-in-cheek how on the nose it was.
Let me to one quick point then, like the actual real question, like for us from across the pond, as they say, people who haven't been over here and who haven't done any physical activity in the kind of heat and humidity that you can experience in America don't understand how draining that actually is if it's not something you're used to. I remember the first time I played a soccer game here, I was 28 years old. Like, I was like in good physical condition. And I was coaching back in Ireland before I moved over here. I was doing the coaching badges and all that. So it was in reasonable condition. And the first time I played in humidity, it literally felt like somebody took every ounce of energy out of me and just like sucked it through my belly button or something like that. Because I had no concept of how to run in that or how to move in that. And if you're not used to that, for a team like Chelsea to go all the way, it's quite an achievement, I think. But going forward into the World Cup, that's a fact. That's something that countries are going to have to factor into, isn't it, Jamie?
Definitely, yeah. And Chelsea, we were fortunate enough to have most of our games around the East Coast. I think North Carolina is the furthest we traveled. But if teams progress further in the World Cup, they're going to Mexico, Canada. They're going to clock the miles for sure. But yeah, weird time. I think they're going to have to figure it out. I saw rumblings of Infantino saying they're going to focus on stadiums with roofs so they can control the temperature. That's interesting considering they chose a rundown, what is essentially Old Trafford for the final, that it does not have a roof. So that'd be fun. But yeah, I kind of agree with you, Glenn, on the kind of didn't really feel necessary. It is slightly different when your team's playing. I generally, if Chelsea come over here, I'll potentially come to one game. I'll pay attention, but I'm not every single minute or going to every single game I can. When they come on US tours, we come on a lot of them. You tend not to see the first team, and I'll try and catch a game in the UK when I'm over instead. But for a team that is facing financial penalties from UEFA, even though it's just a slap on the wrist, who did not have a first team sponsor last year or shirt sponsor last year, who didn't qualify for the Champions League and is still spending money in transfer fees, an injection of $100+ million into our bank account is not the end of the world. I think it's a job well done. Hopefully the players are handsomely compensated in bonuses, because they were phenomenal all tournament. But Chelsea have always viewed this season and this upcoming season and last season as kind of one bridge season. So they're going to get some time off now, but our preseason is pretty hampered by this. But I mean, players are young, right? We're the youngest team. You think the youngest team is probably the most capable to deal with a shorter time off and then straight into the next season with maybe one. I think we're playing 2 preseason games and then we kick off the season. But yeah, in all, like a really solid event for Chelsea, even if it is a little bit of a non-event. I do think it'll get there. But like when money gets spent, like people will pay attention eventually. They just need to polish a lot of the tournament. That was a first run. It wasn't the end of the world. Obviously, Michael Buffer announcing "Let's get ready to rumble" at the beginning of the game isn't really what you expect. But I think in the next edition of the Club World Cup could look a lot different. I enjoyed the ref camera though. Like they had referee's view,
yes,
where you could see what the referee could see. That would actually be interesting in the Premier League. And also the in-stadium experience, if they went to VAR, just like the NFL, the referee would announce to the crowd, like or whatever his name is, pulled Cucurella's hair. That's violent conduct, red card. Like it's very easy to do in Premier League and European games, but that doesn't happen. I think you can borrow things from a tournament that we can all agree is nowhere near as good as the Champions League. You can borrow things and elevate all of football. If it kind of like the XFL and NFL steals a few things from the XFL all the time.
Yeah, and I love there was the goal, right, Jamie? I don't know if you saw it, Maka, where it was really early in the tournament. There was a referee's cam for the Neto goal, I think, that I did see went viral, and that was awesome. Just the speed in which you guys broke pass, and then Neto put it in. It was all the quote tweets was, you imagine you can play professional football for a half, and you think it will be great, and then you watch the speed in real time in which professional players play it. It's just like you can't fathom it. So that was awesome. And yeah, the little technological advances. But I guess just big picture for me, it's just tough. We had the World Cup in Qatar. We have this tournament that's kind of Saudi backed, right? It really just feels like a crystallization of the kowtowing to petrostates and petro money. It just feels like a real reification and celebration of that. So for me, it's kind of hard to untangle the football that's going on with that. But I mean, you could critique the Premier League for various sorts of sketchy sources of money. It's challenging, isn't it? This is also the reality of football, professional men's football in the 2020s. I mean, there's just all these new sources of income that are so dubious and ethically challenging that it's just like, for me, this event just really personified that in a way that did make me a bit uncomfortable. But if you were a Chelsea fan, right, Jamie, there was lots to enjoy. And if you were a fan, as long as you didn't pass out at one of the stadiums, especially the ones early on in the season, there was one in California, right, where fans were leaving at halftime because it was just simply too hot to be there. There's a real irony to players and fans struggling in extreme climates while this tournament functions a kind of sports washing, greenwashing, purpose. There is a real level of irony to that that's hard to really disentangle from this. But nonetheless, there was obviously some highlights on the field.
Now, Jamie touched on this, so I want to go back to Jamie about this, and then we'll see what Glenn thinks as well. But for Chelsea and for City, and even for PSG and for Real Madrid, Liverpool had their first preseason game last weekend, and preseason training has already started. Assuming that they're not going to just put your players straight back into training again. Like, they're going to need some sort of a break. How do you think the teams that got deep into the tournament, especially the European teams, how do you think it's going to affect their first half of the season?
I can take the first stab at it. Like, Chelsea, I think will be okay. We have so many players and we are young. But I think for us, it's a level up from last season. We had the Champions League. They have the Champions League this year. We didn't last year. We were able to just swap a B team into the Conference League and give our players a rest. So I think it could catch up with us. The benefit for Chelsea, and this is exclusive, this actually applies to PSG as well, really. They're both fairly young teams. So, and PSG is a bit of the Liga is a bit of a farmers league anyway. So, it will have knock-on effects for teams that, or it could have knock-on effects for teams, especially when you get around the busy Christmas period. For any teams that have injuries, and then you're really relying on the guys that didn't get a preseason, it could have an effect. Will it? I honestly don't know. But there's a chance it will, just because, like, as Glenn mentioned, this was an extremely taxing season coming off a taxing season prior with the summer for the elite international players. They haven't had a break in God knows how long. So at some point that catches up with you, that could lead to injuries.
Io's with us. Are you well?
How you doing?
Good. How have you guys been?
Good stuff. So we've been good, but what we've been talking about before we go to Glenn and wrap this section up, what were your impressions of the Club World Cup? What did you think of it all?
To be honest, I did not watch any game until the final. But from what everybody said, it looks like it was a very good tournament. It was good to have teams from like Africa, teams from South America, all together playing against teams that they probably would never play in their lives. So I think that was good. That part was good. Overall, I always felt strongly like it was a money grab, like everything with FIFA and UEFA is. So I mean, that's fine. But I think the finals, there was a big, huge surprise. I'm sure Jamie loved it, but like to everybody else, it was a huge surprise. I mean, I thought PSG was going to demolish Chelsea, and I was totally shocked about that for sure. I do think every 4 years is probably better to do this tournament instead of, because I assume they are canceling the whole one they do like at the end of December that they used to do, right? That's gone now, right? Is that correct?
The old format, yeah.
Yeah, but they used to do every December. Okay, so yeah, I think every 4 years is fine. It helps the players long term. Short term, though, I think players, teams like maybe Chelsea, Real Madrid that went deep in the tournament. This might catch up with them during the season. It might.
Glenn, what do you think the impact will be of this tournament for Chelsea and City, at least in the Premier League? I mean, Jamie makes the point that those clubs have big squads, but at the same time, Cole Palmer played, and he's a very important player for Chelsea. I think Erling Haaland played for City. He's somebody who. He strikes me somebody who's going to start getting a lot of injuries the older he gets, because he's got such a big frame, and he's working so hard now at some point, unless he's drinking all the right Ribena that James Milner doesn't drink anymore. He might have that catch up to him. But do you think it is going to have an impact, or do you think that those squads are so well stocked that they can mitigate it at least to a degree and be thereabouts come the post-Christmas rush into the final stretch?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, obviously Chelsea, it's like a comically big squad, so obviously all the jokes have already been made there. I do think the fatigue of being out there in America, traveling across what is a ginormous country, although obviously Man City crashed out pretty embarrassingly pretty early. I mean, that in terms of like the mental impact it will have, Chelsea are you would think, yes, there'll be tired bodies, but mentally you think this would be a springboard into the league. Like, hey, we've got confidence, we've got swagger, we just demolished PSG. Like that, those are big achievements that Chelsea put together, right? They fully earned their win in this tournament. So surely, that will help them. But as you said, players like Palmer, it was nice to see him improve, right? Because he went pretty cold, not in the way he'd want to as the season, trailed off. He really did just lose his mojo, and it was good to see him pulling the strings again from an England perspective, because that's what you want, obviously, in a tournament next year. It's really hard to say. I think the fact the squads are so big, is a massive plus, but some of the teams in the tournament will absolutely be drained. Teams with smaller squads who maybe progressed, towards the last 16. It will have an impact. And, it's just tough player welfare, right? Players just don't need an extra set of, 6, 7, 8, 9 competitive games when they should be resting and playing the occasional friendly. I mean, you can also argue that clubs like United, right, have racked up the highest air miles in preseason, right? Flying all over the shop, dragging their players clearly against their will at some of these stops. So it's not as if this didn't happen, Chelsea would have been relaxing in London. They would have been out doing preseason tours across the globe. Such is the nature of this kind of globalized preseason. Yeah. But, I think it's tough when you're playing games in the heat, as you said, Maka, high intensity games. Like the Club World Cup had a good tempo to it. These were much more than friendlies, obviously. I think you can see a drain. And if we don't see it quite at the start, I'm curious if we'll see some fatigue build up maybe around Christmas, right? When those extra 7, 8 games really start to tally on the legs, and when the Premier League really starts getting competitive, which honestly is game one. In this league, you just cannot start slow because you're going to be off the pace for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Let's move on to a topic we can all talk about. We'll start with Jamie for this one, and that is the transfer market. From our Liverpool perspective, we got Wirtz, we got Frimpong, we got Kirkes. Looks like we're in for either Matata or even maybe Isak if I can never say his name. Ekitike. Hugo. If Hugo goes to Newcastle, and they don't end up having probably the best forward line in England at that point. But, Jamie, how have you seen Chelsea's transfer dealings so far, and what are you looking for the remainder of the transfer window, for the summer transfer at least?
So my answer is different now than what it was at the beginning of the Club World Cup. I think we did well to do some business early on and get Delap in. So Jackson was not our only real recognized striker. Delap showed promise during the Club World Cup. He's obviously clearly young and needs to develop. We're developing obviously the Manchester City Academy from 4 or 5 years ago under Maresca. But bringing in João Pedro was great business. I wasn't convinced that was a lot of money for him, but he's been fantastic in the 2 games that he played. Straight off the beach was phenomenal, and he was all over the spot. He's aggressive on the ball, so I think that's a really good bit of business, and he's flexible, can play a couple of different positions. I thought we needed a goalkeeper, and it seems like we're not going to go in for a goalkeeper. Sanchez played phenomenally well in the Club World Cup final and was pretty good throughout the tournament, actually, with a few clean sheets towards the end. Seems like we're going to put our trust in him, and until the kid Mike Penders comes of age. We've already spent so much on goalkeepers. Outgoing transfers, I think losing Kepa for 5 million feels like nothing, to a rival as well. He arguably is our best goalkeeper, or could have been. But I think getting 50+ million for Madueke is good business, especially when we've got other players coming in. I like Madueke. He's fairly versatile, and he's aggressive and will attack players. Bit of an attitude issue, so to speak, but players that actually want to take on the fullbacks are few and far between these days. So I would have rather seen other players like Nkunku go, but I think for Chelsea, it's important that we find homes for players who are either going to be loaned out or are surplus to requirements and need to just be sold, because having too much of a bloated squad, it just becomes a strain on resources. It's something that some people can talk about the whole time. And if we don't need them, let's try and sell them and get some money back. Otherwise, it's a complete buyer's market from Chelsea. That surplus to requirements, someone can just come and completely lowball us. But in general, I want to see a few guys go out. Potentially, we're still looking for other for either a centre back or maybe even another forward. So we will see. Jamie Gittins, I've not seen too much of him, if I'm completely honest. Just in the Champions League, seems like a decent signing. Probably Madueke's level, similar age, so hopefully he can blossom, but plays on the left-hand side. I think we've added and strengthened, and that's important. And we've also got Willian Esteval coming in. I don't know if you guys saw his goal against Chelsea in the Club World Cup, one touch, top corner near post.
Yep.
Could be a great young player. I just hope he gets some time as well. But yeah, several of the players that we bought last summer are going to be joining us this summer. So we'll see how well we integrate them. But it's exciting times, to be honest.
I'm going to go to you before Glenn, because we've had a long ongoing conversation, myself and Glenn, about Brentford and Thomas Frank and what would happen afterwards. But Man United's business. Now, I'm not being ignorant here, but I don't know anything about it because I haven't been able to. I've been too busy working to follow anything that's going on that wasn't Liverpool Football Club. So tell me what they've done so far, and has it met your satisfaction as a fan?
Terrible. I give them a big 0 so far. They brought in Matheus Cunha. That's the only confirmed transfer so far. I know they are still hard price with Mbuemo. I think that's how he likes him called. Brian Mbuemo. And that's been pretty much it in incomings. Outgoings, they're still struggling to sell. Rashford, Sancho, who else? Anthony, Malacia, and even Garnacho. And I mean, who knew? Who could have told them that was going to happen when they, told everybody that they were supposed to requirements? This was what was always on the cards. So I was like, yeah, United. What I think it's been a big fat 0 so far. It just feels like we're reacting, and I say this because it feels like we just keep reacting to what happens the season before. It doesn't seem like there's a long-term coherent plan in place. Because I remember all the things they had said when I say Ineos, when they came in, they're going to try to go young, blah blah blah, all of that, and of course they finished 15th, so they panic, and then they're going to buy. They're targeting peak age 25, 26-year-old players, to get instant improvement. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this is the new plan now. But the problem with that is you're overpaying severely, because we paid 62 million for Cunha. On Bemo now, I think Brentford is asking for upwards of 70 million. So at this point it makes no sense to me. That it makes absolutely no sense to me. I think if you are going to overpay and try to get peak age players, why not do it for positions where you have no option? We don't have an option in striker. We don't have an option in a DM position, in my opinion, because you're not going to come next season with just Ugarte and Casemiro. That's not going to work. Those are the positions. If you want to overpay, you overpay for those positions. But I guess their hands are tied now, since we brought in another manager and he has fallen out yet another player and saying, oh, they should train separately away from the squad, and you can't move them on. So for me, big fat 0, but I guess the story of United for the last 11 years. So
let me ask you a 2-pronged question. The first one is the fact that Amorim does that with players, for players coming in potentially. Do you think that may be a little bit off-putting for some players, that they see how he treats players he falls out with? And then the other side of that coin, the fact that so many newspaper rumors came out about Garnacho and Anthony's and Rashford's attitudes. Do you think that's gone a little bit way to pushing clubs away? They don't want to have to deal with that, whether it's true or not. The perception is that they kind of threw Moody's because they weren't getting their way, and now they're almost tainted. So the first part of the coin is there's the fact that Ruben Amorim throws his players under the bus at times, or freezes players out. If you're a player that's got interest for Manchester United, do you think that's going to go, ooh, maybe I don't want to deal with that? And then if you're a club looking to buy players and you get, Garnacho, that's a good price, but ooh, I don't have to deal with the drama, whether that's true or not. Do you think those two perceptions are affecting your transfer business?
think the first one is even the bigger perception, right? I don't think it's even a Ruben Amorim thing. It's just a United thing, right? Even before Amorim became right, Rashford had his own thing with Ten Hag, Sancho had his own thing with Ten Hag. You could go back, Pogba with Mourinho. You could go with. So I think it's more of a United thing where young players might see that as to your point, I'm like, ooh, like, do these guys care for their young players? Do they nurture them? Do they have a plan for them of how they use them? And yes, you might. I think that's definitely a thing, 100%. And that's why, the running joke is most players that want to move to United are usually moving for because of the wages. Because, as much as United is still part of the top 4, top 5 teams that can pay, big wages. So that's what drives most of them, in my opinion. I think the second part to your question, I think clubs are just, playing hardball because they know that United are desperate. So they're going to, there's no need for them to haggle. They're just going to wait to the last 1-2 weeks of transfer window and just come with low ball offer. At that point, United are very desperate. They just take it. They don't have a choice at that point. I think that's what's going to happen. That's what they're doing. That's what all the clubs are doing, I think. I think it's less about the attitude. It's like they're going to lowball United. And, of course, the wages. Are the players willing to take pay cuts? Is Sancho willing to take a pay cut? Is Rashford willing to take a pay cut? For Garnacho, his salary is not that much. I think Garnacho is like 100,000 or 90,000. It's not a lot of money. I think what they're trying to do, they'll wait to the last 2 weeks, then they'll bring like 40 million or 30 million. At that time, United will be desperate. And they will take it because they don't have a choice. Because they most likely would have had a bad start to the season by then. So
I'd love one day for my wages to be not that much at 90 grand. That would be a great day.
I know.
Glenn, now let's get to you because we've talked about this, myself and yourself, especially in shows when it was just me and you, about what would happen when Thomas Frank left. And we were both right, I think. The Vultures are coming to pick the team apart. You got Kelleher in, and if I was Kelleher, I'd be mightily pissed off that the manager that I thought was going to give me the chance to be a first-team goalkeeper is now at Spurs. And then I won't say a bad thing about Henderson as a Liverpool captain, and he is a Liverpool modern-day legend, but he's also 35. He's getting there. Like it could be an inspirational Christian Eriksen type signing, or it could be what the hell are we doing with this guy on our wage bill. What do you think of your transfer business so far, with the caveat of Thomas Frank no longer leading the line? And Keith Andrews, as much as I love the guy for playing for Ireland, it's still Keith Andrews.
Yeah, it is. It isn't very, very unproven Keith Andrews. He's got experience, obviously, behind the scenes, set piece coach with us. He has experience, assistant, obviously, Mako with Republic of Ireland and MK Dons. But yeah, totally untested as a manager ever, right? So yeah, I wouldn't say it's a puzzling appointment because Brentford like to keep things in-house. We like to promote from within. You could say the same for Thomas Frank. I think Mark Warburton, perhaps. Like plenty of managers who have really thrived first have come through the ranks. And Thomas Frank, there is no better example, probably in the Premier League or any league in England, than promoting a manager from within and seeing him thrive. And yeah, I wish him the best at Spurs. I really do. I think the allure of Champions League football was just too much. I think without Champions League football, I think it would probably be a different story. But hey, he's gone. It took us a while to appoint Keith Andrews. We were looking at a couple of other managers in Europe, but Matthew Benham, the leadership team, which has just been expanded today with some new investment, which always worries me a bit as a Brentford fan. We've been such a well-managed club and we've done things so organically and so smartly for so long. Any change is worrying. Matthew Vaughan, the guy who directs the Kick-Ass films, among others, is part of this new cash injection we got today, about 600 million. So we'll see where that goes. And you imagine, right, Macca, a lot of that's going to go straight back into the squad this summer. Along with the money we're going to get for our sales. So, yeah, just looking at the outgoings, yeah, it's been tricky. Obviously, Mark Flecken moved on, and you told me maybe 2 years ago I'd be sad about that. I might be surprised, but he was an exceptional goalkeeper this year. Metrics-wise, he was one of the best in Europe. He was arguably per metrics, he was one of the very best keepers in Europe last year. So he's not someone you want to leave, but he wants to be closer to family. Absolutely fine. Good luck to him. He was a great servant for us. Christian Norgard was such a wild card. Him dipping out, club captain, absolute champion for us. He is very much embodied everything right with the club. Such a hard worker, such a gifted player. The kind of player who, if he's not there, everyone plays worse, especially he's a really important defensive midfielder for us. And that seemed to be one of those deals, right, Macca, that just was done in about 24, 48 hours, a very rare deal in the contemporary market. For me, as a fan who follows stuff closely, Norgard rumor to Arsenal signed Norgard. You don't often see it move that quickly. And for them, I mean, that's a bargain for about 10 million, isn't it? Or whatever it was. It's peanuts. I think that's a smart piece of business for them. He won't play every game, but he's a quality Premier League player who you're getting age 31 for peanuts in the Premier League. So very smart from Arsenal. Pretty devastating for us, I would say, and quite unexpected. Obviously, you know we're locked in negotiations as much as anyone. I think we have a valuation of Mbeumo, and we want it met. Right, that's basically where we're at, I think, and you guys haven't met it quite yet. You've put out some money for Cunha, and I think the club values Mbeumo as a bit more than Cunha, and that's kind of where we're at. Oh, it's a bit of a stalemate right now. He's back trading with us this week. What complicates that deal as well, right, for United fans and Brentford fans is the interest that teams like Newcastle and especially Spurs are showing in Johan Wissa, which seems to be gathering speed as well. You know, we're going to ask for about 50 million for him. Nottingham Forest offering 20 million a couple of days ago, which was 2 million less than the bid we rejected in January, was somewhat insulting. So I think they're going to have to double it to get anywhere near that. I mean, hey, they're kind of busy, you know, locking Gibbs White in a room and trying not to let him go to Spurs as well. So they've got enough problems right now. But yeah, I mean, as you said, Macca, the vultures are there. It's pretty brutal. The squad is being somewhat dismantled. I would be surprised if Mbeumo and Wissa go this window. I think that would be pretty challenging. So I mean, if Spurs come in and want to overpay or pay the fair amount, like you know, we'll see. What we got? Yeah. We've got what a massive upgrade. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, I will say in terms of incoming, so outgoings is a bit of a mess. Very, very hard to open the news, read the newspaper, and another player's going out. It's brutal. It's definitely a dismantling of this kind of first era Brentford Premier League project, right? Frank's gone, key players are gone. It's a sad thing. Kelleher, great signing, excited about him. Jordan Henderson, I mean, hey, I am happy about him, and I think most sensible Brentford fans would also be happy to have someone, as you said in the chat, with his experience, with his quality, no problem at all. I mean, would I prefer him or Norgard? I would prefer Norgard next season, absolutely, 100 times out of 100. But it would be ridiculous to laugh at or turn down a player with Jordan's leadership, his quality, his experience. Like, he has everything you want in a personality in the dressing room and on the field. He's just probably not going to be able to play 90 minutes week in, week out, every single week. And then beyond that, we made Michael Coyote permanent. He was brilliant at right back last year. And we signed a player I'm not really familiar with from Feyenoord called Milambo, attacking midfielder, scored a couple of nice goals last season. We shall see. He's 20 years old, pretty young. But yeah, honestly, Mac, a huge transition window. I mean, Spurs are picking apart our team. United are trying to pick apart our team. The manager's gone. I think most people who would be looking, most betting people who are looking at the teams coming up from the Championship, which is 3 strong teams, I think, certainly in terms of fan bases, certainly in terms of some Premier League experience in there, all 3 of them. If you're looking at a team that's going to maybe wobble from the kind of established Premier League teams, I wouldn't be surprised if people are looking at Brentford and seeing basically a project being pulled apart and think, I wonder how they're going to fare 10 games in when Keith Andrews has perhaps lost a couple in a row and the fans are on his back and our new players aren't gelling. So, yeah, it's a nervous start to the season. I mean, hey, at least United are having a worse window than us. We don't have 5 players expelled to the children's, you know, playing ground and having to kick a ball around each other. I wouldn't prefer our window necessarily, but I mean, United and Brentford are certainly having pathetic windows in very different ways right now.
I think the only thing, the good thing about Jordan Henderson is he'll probably bring a nice supply of Tudor crisps, like, for those who remember Tudor crisps from Britain.
I do remember them.
Yeah, with the salt packet inside, you have to flavour your own crisps. That was the deal. So let's go back to Jamie and let's move on to talking about the preseason itself. And the reason I'm asking Jamie is because we can't really call the Club World Cup any sort of preseason. It was a postseason tournament, so the players are still on that buzz of you know, the mental buzz, certainly of continuing the season past the Europa League final. continue the season past the league final. So mentally, they haven't had a chance to take a break. I mean, I'm sure they've taken a break now, but it means that recovery-wise, they're going to be a lot behind most of the other teams like Liverpool or Arsenal who aren't in this tournament, and United and Spurs, etc. So, in terms of like your preseason games when they actually start happening for you, do you care about like? I don't think any of us really cares about the results, but you want to see things that that will give an indication of what your season is going to be like. But do you think Chelsea have extenuating circumstances where nothing is going to look right until maybe the 5th or 6th game into the season proper?
I honestly don't know how to view it, to be honest. Like, you could see Chelsea didn't have that many training sessions for the Club World Cup, given the heat and whatnot. But you saw reports of Maresca doing tactical work, not with the tournament in mind necessarily, but with next season in mind, viewing last season and next season very much as one campaign. So yes, the players have got a break now. I'd like to think we did a lot of our preseason work during the Club World Cup, and I think there'll be a little bit of a slow start, but I don't think it'll be too bad. We've got 2 preseason games against Leverkusen and AC Milan, I think. It'll be interesting to see how we compare. But if it's anything like João Pedro, he was on the beach and then 4 days later was scoring 2 goals against Fluminense. Like, these guys are professional athletes, and if they're not going to be drinking beers in Ibiza, I'd hope that they would be taking care of themselves. Not everyone is Luke Shaw, although I did see him looking in pretty decent shape ahead of this season. So it's going to be hard to tell. So it's a bit of a cop-out of an answer, but I think we'll see. I think there is extenuating circumstances for Chelsea this season, but I think we tried to the best of our ability to set the team up for a good start to the season, and we'll see how well that paid off.
I think Luke Shaw always looks fit at this time of the season. It's once he gets into the canteen for the games itself when the problems start.
There's no food in the canteens at Carrington anymore.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's a vending machine that you all have to pay for. Probably.
Hey, nobody shame.
Come on. And then the other thing is, don't mock the coming off the beach to play your best after having a few beers. Sam Allardyce has managed many a team to a successful season doing just that very thing, although he's doing it mid-season, to be fair. Pre-season games for Manchester United. I don't know what you've played so far, if anything, but what are you looking for? If your opinion of the transfer dealings is a big fat 0 so far, what are you looking for to see from Amorim? Given how quite often, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a fairly common opinion that he played a system that didn't suit the players that he had, and he persisted with the 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-1-2, whatever you morphed it into. And now he actually has the time to get the players to do what he wants them to do. Are you expecting to see more cohesion in the games, or will you be worried as a fan if you look at the preseason games and it's still the same? Well, when am I supposed to run? No, I thought you were supposed to run there. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm supposed to be a left back, but I'm playing in central midfield. Like, if you get that sense that they still don't know what they're doing, are you going to give up on the season before the first ball is kicked seriously?
I'm giving up before now on the system. But what do I want to see? I want to see more cohesion. The playing out of the back has to be better. I think our playing out of the back is not good enough, in my opinion. Especially once we face a team with like any type of structured press. Our high press / counter press is pretty poor. I think the teams play through United very easily. Especially in our press is non-existent. We play this mid-block thing. We let the team pretty much just play through us until they get to like the mid-block area. So yeah, I need to see better one. I also need to see the striker more involved, whether it's Højlund, whether it's Xerxes. I need to see him more involved in whether it's linking up play, making the right runs, and the wing backs, like finding their players in the box. I need to see more of that. Another thing I'm very, very curious to see now is because Onana is injured and he's out for all the preseason, and even I think he's struggling to probably make the first game. It's a long-term hamstring injury, I hear. I'm very curious to see who he uses as a deputy now. You know, in my opinion, I'm very curious to see that. He's going to go with Bayern there, who I think, is very mediocre. In my opinion, is not good enough. Or is he going to go to Tom Heaton, who is like, wow, Tom Heaton in 2025? That'll be so. I'm trying to see, maybe they'll go to get a goalkeeper because of this injury to Onana. But then again, to be what I just complained about, reacting. We keep reacting to everything. Was the goalkeeper part of the plan beginning of the season? The goalkeeper was part of the plan this season or next season, then accelerate it. Like, don't sit on the Mbeumo deal. If you cannot do the deal this season, just move on. Go to other targets. We need to get a goalkeeper. We need to get a striker. Move on to other targets. That's my opinion. That's if that was part of the plan this season or even next season, whatever targets were part of the plan next season, accelerate it to this season. That's what you should do, because it's not like we don't have a player in the where Mbeumo plays. Ahmad can play there. Bruno can play there. Like, just fill in all the holes in the squad. You know, that's another thing I expect to see.
Let me ask you this, though. Situations such as not being able to play properly out from the back or not being able to press or counter-press properly, to me, these are coaching issues and not personnel issues. Like, any player should be able to be trained to press. It's the simplest thing in the world. There's the ball, go to it. There's the player going to the ball, go support him. It's not like, if you can get 10-year-old teams to press relatively effectively or to at least understand the concepts, if Manchester United players still can't understand those concepts at the end of your pre-season, would you be inclined to think that the problem is Amorim at that point?
Yeah. I've always thought, like, even before now, I always thought he's one of those, managers who believes more, who's wedded too much to a system rather than looking at what the strengths of players are and how you maximize the strength within whatever system you want to use. So I've always felt that. But yes, that would definitely, for sure, like the hunch feeling I always had about Amorim, that would solidify the feeling that, I think he's just one of those guys that, he did a good job where he was, big fish in a small pond, like they say. But coming to this level, whatever I did where he came from, it doesn't scale up to this level. It just doesn't. Because what made him successful at Sporting, I told a lot of my Real fans this, he had a comparable squad to Porto, Benfica, but the rest of the league, they didn't have the kind of quality players that he had. He's come to the Premier League now, and United don't even have like top 5, top 6 squad now as at this point in time, right? So everybody in Premier League is good. So it's a different ballgame.
Glenn, now for your expectations for preseason games, Jamie can talk about maybe rest the players to recreate or maintain freshness going into the start of the season. I was looking for tactical considerations, but are you at the point where you just don't even know what team you're going to have? And that's really literally what you're going to be looking for is, okay, which of these guys are going to be here by the first whistle on the first game?
Yeah, who's going to be here and what is an early indication of our playing style under Keith Andrews, right? That's going to be the big thing to watch for. Like, personnel for all three of our clubs, personnel is going to change in the next couple of weeks before the season for all four of our clubs, So I guess from a Brentford perspective, I'm really intrigued to see what formation we put out, whether we vary the formations, which personnel who are still here occupies which position. Are the players like Brian Mbeumo, who maybe if he gets to the point where he might be sold but hasn't been sold yet, is he going to get a run out? Are we going to really stamp our authority saying, hey, he is still a Brentford player, which is obviously the case? Or will the players, maybe Wissa, maybe Mbeumo, who are maybe 80% out of the door, are they going to be rested? You get all these signs, right, from preseason games. You're never sure. And if anyone has like even the faintest knock, they're never going to be risked. Whereas in a Premier League game, if someone's 80, 90%, maybe they will be risked. So I just want to see what the new era of Brentford looks like. And, preseason games are hard to judge for a million different reasons, but purely structurally, I think I'll be much more interested in this preseason coming up than I probably have been in many years, probably since we got promoted to the Premier League and probably since we changed manager before that, because it really is such an interesting window into the mindset of Keith Andrews. And are we going to press high? Are we going to play 4 at the back? Are we going to play 3 up top or 2? You know, these are the really interesting kernels of information you kind of get. And then we're going to see the gaps in the squad as well, right, Mac? We're going to be like, okay, left mid or wherever it is, that is a big gap in this formation. Or somebody's being played out of position. Who's going to fill that gap come the start of the season? So, yeah, got a couple of preseason friendlies, got QPR away. Borussia Mönchengladbach is going to come to the GTEC, which will be fun. And then we're also playing, we just got announced a couple of days ago, Portuguese club, Gil Vicente. We're going to go over there for a game. And we actually had, I just read this morning, a really interesting strategic partnership with them, with the club, where we exchange ideas, we exchange, you know, information. So that will actually be a really interesting game to watch because we have this actual official partnership with the Portuguese club. So that's almost a semi-in-house friendly in some ways, right? Interesting dynamic there. But yeah, I mean, hey, I hope QPR don't turn us over and the German team don't come and batter us 3 or 4-0, because that would obviously be pretty miserable. And the final thing, Mac, is like players like, you know, Igor Thiago, our club record signing, who we've seen for about 5 minutes in the Premier League last year. Is he going to be looking fit, ready to go? Because he picked up a major injury in his first preseason game for us against Wimbledon last year. So avoiding injuries is the final thing I'll say, Mac. I mean, for all of our clubs, all 4 of our clubs, avoiding injuries is like so high on the agenda, especially after something like the Club World Cup for Jamie.
Gil Vicente, I remember him well from guest starring spots on shows like The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. He just had that club just has that name. So here's what I want to finish up on for all 3 of us, and we'll start with Io. City announcing, I think it's a £1 billion, maybe if it wasn't put into dollars, £1 billion short sponsorship deal for 10 years. Here's my question. Are Manchester City going to continually find ways to launder and funnel money into that club until they're hit with the actual charges they should have been probably found guilty? I know people say it's a long drawn out process because of the legalities of it, but it just feels more and more like they would get away with it, and then they'll get a little minor slap on the wrist, and then they'll just get to be City again, just vacuuming up talent and paying over the odds for it because, oh, we'll sponsor the laces for 10 years now as well. 100 million a season for the laces, for the boots. It just seems like they're finding new ways, Io, doesn't it? Especially for a Man United fan, with Ineos running your show and then scrounging on Snickers bars in the vending machine and firing the dinner lady. It seems to me a little bit galling that they can continue to come up with these very, very creative accounting ways to put money into the club and not be held accountable for it. Yeah,
I mean, I literally had said this in my group chat this morning when I saw the deal announced. I was like, maybe at some point in the future, like all the truth to come out about these overinflated sponsorship deals by City, like $1 billion, really, like, and all these things they keep doing, like maybe. I think, yeah, slap on the wrist will continue. They'll keep getting with it. I mean, Chelsea have jumped on the bandwagon of like financial engineering, doing all this, selling the female clubs to themselves and doing all this, backdoor things. So, like, I think generally clubs are starting to catch up that, like, yeah, most of these rules, PSR rules, it's just going to end up with a slap on the wrist. And, they'll just keep doing it. That's what I think.
Jamie, what do you think, in terms of Todd Bowley being, a little bit of a weird fish, to put it one way, with his buying policy of let's just buy every player under 25 and we'll figure out what to do with them when they get here. Have that one over there, paint the corner flags. That we have to give him something to do for the money. But with City being backed by an entire country, and an oil-rich country at that, it seems like everybody else has to wait for them to have a bad season like we did last season to have any success. And it shouldn't be that, really, should it? There should be maybe not a level playing field, because football has never been egalitarian that way, but it should be fair at least, shouldn't it? That everybody should have the same chance as everybody else and not be supported by a never-ending supply of money and a never-ending creative array of ways to get that money into the players' pockets.
Well, PSR is designed to protect from that, right? But one thing that not forgets, but as long as the team is making significant revenues, then they're going to be able to spend it. So a deal like this is going to significantly benefit City in the short term. It would seem that Puma likely agree with Io that City are just going to get a slap on the wrist. It's not going to be 115 charges relegation. Otherwise, they're going to be the largest shirt sponsor in League Two. That said, with these really long deals, I think you see it more in like NFL, baseball. Like every deal that gets announced is the largest deal ever, and quickly within 2-3 years that gets surpassed. So if there's no new deal within the next 10 years, that 100 million is probably going to be par for the course, assuming revenues keep going up. So while it seems a ton on the front end, it really requires City to continue performing. And if they let up, I think there is going to be space for others who likely are going to sign similar shirt sponsors. I mean, you have to sign a shirt sponsor deal for it to be similar, right? But in theory, Chelsea are going to do all right post Club World Cup. And we'll see. I think United's is 60 odd million. I think Liverpool's similar with Adidas. And I mean, billions a ton. Puma's obviously taking a risk there, but over 10 years, it will probably normalize and others will catch up and potentially even surpass. Because like City don't really have a ton of fans, do they? They think they do, but not really. How many City fans do you guys know? Like in the US, do you know any City fans?
I don't know any in the US, but my dad's a long-term City fan now. To be fair, he was at the old Kit Pack stand way back when it was Summerby Bell and Franny Lee, but that's it.
I don't know any Man City fans out here.
Yeah, they really don't have the fan base to be able to say all that stuff. But I'm just trying to rudely check here. But is the Puma deal for shorts or is it for training shorts?
I think it's front of shirt sponsor. And sorry, it's for not front of shirt sponsor. I mean, it's for the kit. Like I think it's for match day kit and training kit, right? The works. Yeah. You would think it would have to be for that value.
Oh yeah, it's for the full. Yeah, that. I mean, that at least is obvious. You know what I mean? You need a shirt sponsor. I thought because I remember Liverpool got like under the David Moore's era. I think we probably just before the Hicks and Gillette got like 2 million for the training jerseys. We were like, oh great, we're gonna be rich. Nobody buys training jerseys. Ah crap. But Glenn, what do you think of it all? Because you know we've talked about how your club is run very frugally but very efficiently, much like Brighton tries to run their club, and it must be galling to know you'll never compete at that level unless you sacrifice. I'm going to imagine all the same things Liverpool fans would have an issue with, the club principles just for the almighty dollar, so to speak, and to see a club just do it so blatantly. And to be fair, and I hate to say this because Liverpool and United fans have a long-standing rivalry, but even with the 1990s PLC era and the Sky era for Man United, it's still always been an organic club, where City are entirely plastic at this point. I mean, Chelsea were the benefactor or beneficent, is that the right word, of the Abramovich money, but at the same time, he didn't do anything different than what was his name? Jack Walker did at Blackburn. It was a very one-man operation, but this is an entire country with unlimited supplies of oil. It just doesn't sit right with me. What do you think of it, Glenn?
Yeah, it's part of the same phenomena that that we talked about with the Club World Cup. Really, it's just like another symptom. It came a couple of years earlier, and it's continuing now. It's it's just petrostate money, pulling the strings or trying to pull the strings, in a series of really meaningful ways, whether that's institutions or tournaments or club ownership, right? Yeah, it's just such is the landscape of football in the mid 2020s, right? It's just awash. It's just drowning in this petrostate money. And yeah, obviously Man City are a club that symbolize that, right? One of the first in the Premier League to really usher in this kind of transformation of funding in kind of global football at the highest kind of echelons. But yeah, in terms of the shirt deal, Adidas signed, it was like 90 million a year, right, with United 2 years ago. Interesting that Liverpool's is about 60 million a year now. Their new Adidas one they just put together. So yeah, it's a bit higher. And yeah, kind of as you alluded to, right, Jamie, it's like you'd be surprised if they'd be inking these very expensive, very lucrative deals if Puma were concerned that City would kind of face any meaningful sanction. And it's not, they might not have that information, but enough people in enough high places usually have an understanding of which way the wind's blowing. And it's probably not towards huge transfer bans, points deductions, and relegation. That's probably not the way it's going if you're going to offer $1 billion to a club. So yeah, such as the stuff with Man City, it always leaves a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth. But it did a bit with Chelsea under Abramovich, as you said. There's various ways that clubs are funded that are a broad spectrum of unsavory, right? It's challenging, right? I dislike Ratcliffe, with United as much as any other kind of senior figure. I think he's vile. So, it's tricky. It's kind of like a pick your villain in the Premier League and with FIFA, with UEFA. It's tricky. I mean, for Man City, if the money's on the table, take it. Obviously, they have enough things going on, and it is frustrating where they can get creative ways to keep financing the club, as you talked about, Macca. But yeah, for Brentford, I mean, hey, I'd love to know what money we're getting for our shirts. I'm sure I would absolutely love to know. Be really curious if it hits double figures for the millions, to be honest.
£207 and half a Snickers.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to pay for the shorts as well. They're not. But we always know, right, going to the Premier League, Macca, we always know there's going to be structural inequity, and that's just the game you play, and you try and get your edge in different ways, right? We're not going to get 100 million from Puma, but we are going to get a hell of a lot of money from either selling Mbumo or Wissa. We're going to get a hell of a lot of money from that. So we just have to play the game differently. We have to play it smarter than some clubs. We're not going to have a bloated squad like Chelsea. We're not going to have petro money, hopefully ever. I wouldn't want it if it was offered, just like you, Mac, and with Liverpool, you wouldn't want that money. So yeah, you're just playing by a different set of rules. But honestly, that can make the wins even sweeter. Our win at the Etihad a couple of years ago, we beat Man City home and away the season before last, right? Money doesn't mean everything in the Premier League. And that's probably why all four of us watch it every weekend and why we love it. Because if it was just the biggest teams winning every week, it would be exceptionally boring. So City are welcome to that money. I'm sure they'll use it wisely. They need to certainly invest better than they did last summer, which was a shambolic window for them, really, in terms of quality and recruitment and sticking with players who were too old. So, yeah, let's see how it goes. But Brentford always know we're not going to have that money or that funding, but we just have to be smart. And that makes the league fun. That makes it interesting.
I only watch the football every week just to get away from the wife, to be fair. only kidding, Mrs. Macca. And if you want to bloat at squad, then just get Keith Andrews to sign me. I'll bloat it all by myself. Work perfectly for everybody. So with that said, on that moral dilemma, or as we like to call it, Man City are cheating bastards. I think we can all agree. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on again to host. It's always a pleasure and a fantastic time. Certainly had by me and hopefully by everybody who is watching. We will make sure that if you're watching now, that if you want to remember when the things are that are on that we have on, follow us on the YouTube, like and subscribe, Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Mastodon, and all of those good things. It's the only way to figure out what we're doing, because sometimes we don't know, and it's nice if somebody else can remember. Jamie, Glenn, thank you so much. It was a pleasure as always. But it's time for Betty Boys for Macca and the lads. Not Jamie. He's still on Monday afternoon in his time zone. So with Susie. We will be back, I think it's tomorrow morning, for the American Scouser coffee show. So make sure you're watching that. And then the Thursday Night Pod on Thursday. But for everybody else, here's some funky music. Peace out. And let's all set a collection for Brentford so that they get £208 and a full Snickers for their kick deal. Have a good one. Here we go.